In this video, we'll be taking a look at 3 NBA games happening on March 1st, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 6 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 3 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Oklahoma City Thunder versus Dallas Mavericks. Oklahoma City heads into Dallas for this Sunday night meeting, and it feels like a classic spot where one team walks in with all the answers on the whiteboard while the other is still looking for a marker. The Thunder are sitting at 46-15, perched on top of the Western Conference with the best net rating in the league, a top-tier offense, and a defense that has been the stingiest group around by efficiency. That combination usually travels well, and it has this year, with Oklahoma City handling business away from home like a veteran group that knows exactly who it is. Dallas comes in at 21-38, sitting in the lower half of the conference, carrying a negative net rating and an offense that has struggled even while playing at one of the fastest tempos around. Their style looks fun on League Pass, lots of pace and early actions, but it often turns into rushed possessions and pressure on a defense that is not built to live in constant transition. Honestly, that kind of game plan can work when you have enough shot-making and structure to back it up, but when those pieces are missing or banged up, it starts to look more like survival than strategy. Oklahoma City, on the other side, brings a steady core that is in uniform and ready to go. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Hartenstein, Jared McCain, and the rest of the regular rotation are on the active list and not on the injury report for this one. The players listed out for the Thunder are Brandon Carlson with a back issue, Ajay Mitchell with an abdominal injury, Jalen Williams with a hamstring that has him sidelined into early March, and rookie big Thomas Sorber with a long-term knee injury. That kind of clarity in the rotation lets the coaching staff keep roles tight and minutes clean, which sounds simple but matters a lot when you are trying to cover as a road favorite. Dallas does not have that same comfort right now. The franchise shifted directions after the Luka Doncic trade a year ago and built its identity around #1 pick Cooper Flagg, who is sidelined with a foot problem that runs through at least the start of next week. Marvin Bagley III is also out with a neck issue, and important forwards like Caleb Martin, P.J. Washington, and Najee Marshall are sitting in that stressful game-time decision bucket. Kyrie Irving and Derek Lively II are done for the season, which strips away a lot of shot creation and rim protection that would make an up-tempo style less risky. Tyus Jones just got waived so the team could convert Ryan Nembhard's deal, which leaves the point guard room feeling very thin, and you can imagine how that looks when the opponent is the most connected defense in the conference. Put all that together and you get one side that knows exactly how it wants to play, has its core intact, and has been treating large road spreads like routine business, and another side that is juggling injuries, new responsibilities, and a fast but shaky offensive identity. Here is the thing, bettors see a huge number next to a home underdog, and it can be tempting to talk yourself into the idea that pride alone keeps it close, but pride does not handle switches, tag rollers, or rotate to shooters. Given the health reports, the recent roster moves, and the way these two styles fit together right now, the matchup leans solidly toward the defending champions imposing their will across 4 quarters rather than wobbling through a coin flip type result against an undermanned and unstable group. As our first pick for this matchup, the Oklahoma City Thunder to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Scoring-wise, the first glance numbers suggest a fun scoreboard, since Oklahoma City has been putting up strong point totals behind that top-tier offense, and Dallas, for all its flaws, still plays at a very lively pace. The Thunder can light it up when they need to, but the real backbone of their season is that #1 defense that chops opponents down to around the low 100s per 100 possessions, using length, smart rotations, and very few weak spots to attack. That kind of defensive personality tends to slow games down in a subtle way, even if the raw pace number sits near league average, because every trip becomes a little more uncomfortable and every cut or screen is more crowded than usual. Dallas wants to run, sitting near the top of the league in pace, but not because the offense is some unstoppable machine. It is almost the opposite, running to cover for the fact that the half-court sets often stall, so they try to grab cheap points before a defense gets fully set. Even before the latest injuries, this group lived near the bottom of the league in offensive efficiency and in the lower middle of the pack in three-point accuracy, which is not a great mix when you are trying to keep up with elite attacks. Take Cooper Flagg off the floor, remove Marvin Bagley III from the mix, and keep P.J. Washington and Najee Marshall in that uncertain status, and you get an offense that leans even more on early clock jumpers because late clock looks become harder to build. On the other side, Oklahoma City does not need to play at a breakneck speed to separate on the scoreboard. Their pace sits around the league middle, and they are very comfortable grinding a game into a half-court contest if they sense that the opponent is thin on creation and structure. In a spot like this, that approach becomes even more attractive because you can squeeze the life out of an already struggling offense, build a steady cushion, and then let the game drift toward a quiet finish rather than a fireworks show. That is where the game script starts to tilt toward fewer points than the raw scoring averages might suggest. You can picture Oklahoma City's defense slowly turning Dallas possessions into long, uncomfortable trips, followed by stretches of the fourth quarter where benches and experimental lineups see the floor and neither side has much urgency to run up the score. The idea is not that there will be no runs or no exciting stretches, but that over 48 minutes the balance of elite defense, shaky offense, and late-game caution is more likely to pull the total down than push it into a full-on track meet. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. New Orleans Pelicans versus Los Angeles Clippers. The matchup in Los Angeles has that classic feel of one team everyone expects to handle business at home and another team that shows up like the friend who did not get the memo they were supposed to be scared of the setting. The Clippers have the shiny new building, the bigger record, and the name brand star, while the Pelicans walk in carrying a record that screams lottery and a recent stretch of play that quietly says, maybe do not write us off just yet. The records make it easy to mentally slot this as a comfortable night for the home side, with Los Angeles sitting around the middle of the Western Pack and New Orleans closer to the basement, but that simple snapshot misses how these teams are actually behaving lately. New Orleans has started stacking real wins against real opponents, knocking off Philadelphia, Golden State, and Utah, which is a weird trio to see on the resume of a team buried near the bottom of the standings, and that kind of recent success usually shows up in confidence, body language, and the way a group responds when it falls behind. Los Angeles, on the other hand, looks more like a team still figuring out what it wants to be after a busy trade season, playing close games on a regular basis and living in that uncomfortable space where you are better than your record but not quite reliable enough to make anyone feel safe spotting you a big margin. That kind of profile, where the point differential is almost a coin flip, naturally leans toward tighter finishes, even when the logo and the home crowd make the favorite look more imposing on paper than in the actual flow of a game. Here is the thing, stylistically the Clippers are happy to slow you down, run their sets, and let their star wing grind out possessions, but the math on that approach is a little funny when you are expected to win by a comfortable cushion. Their scoring and their defense both sit right around the league median, which is great for winning hard-fought games and less great for casually blowing out opponents that are willing to keep playing hard in the fourth quarter instead of treating the night like a foregone conclusion. New Orleans lives at the other end of the personality spectrum, and honestly that is part of what makes them such a dangerous underdog. They play faster, they lean into volatility, and they are perfectly comfortable turning a normal possession into a scramble, especially with Zion bullying his way into the paint, Trey Murphy spacing the floor when healthy, and guys like Jordan Poole, Sadiq Bey, Bryce McGowens, and Derek Queen pushing the tempo or firing early in the shot clock. It is not tidy basketball, but for a team catching points on the road, chaos is not a bug, it is a feature. There is also the human side of this spot, which bettors love to talk about but numbers do not always capture. The Clippers are at home, under the lights, in a building that feels more like a tech product than an arena, with a fan base expecting a take-care-of-business performance against a team with an 18-42 type resume, and that can lead to some drifting focus, especially if they jump out to an early lead. New Orleans has none of that pressure. They are already written off in the standings. Their pick is headed to Atlanta anyway, and that freedom lets them play like the group that just wants to mess with the script rather than protect anything. Injuries only tilt that vibe further in favor of the scrappy side. The Clippers are still dealing with Bradley Beal being shut down for the year and the ongoing will he or will he not suit up yet dance with Darius Garland, whose debut is close enough for detailed articles but still depends on medical sign-off, which means you cannot bank on his stabilizing presence in this specific game. Kawhi Leonard is carrying a massive load on both ends. Benedict Mathurin has added a real scoring punch on the wing, and John Collins plus Brook Lopez give them size and shooting. But as Minnesota just reminded everyone, this roster can still fall into ugly, low-scoring stretches when the rhythm is even slightly off. New Orleans has its own issues, with Trey Murphy sidelined by a shoulder problem, but most of their core playmakers have been available during this recent mini-surge, and that matters more for a team whose whole personality is tied to having lots of different guys willing to attack rather than leaning on one alpha to save them. A young roster that has just beaten the 76ers, Warriors, and Jazz is not stepping into this building thinking, "Please do not embarrass us." It is walking in thinking, "We already traded haymakers with teams better than this. Let us see how long we can keep this one uncomfortable." So you get this neat contrast. One side is the nominal heavyweight at home, with the star power and the building and the reputation, but a track record of playing tight games and a roster still in transition after a flurry of trades and injuries. The other side is the supposed doormat that has recently punched above its weight against playoff-level opponents, runs a style that refuses to let games stay tidy, and has zero emotional downside if things get weird in the fourth quarter. When you zoom out, it is hard not to see this as the classic spot where the favorite can absolutely win the game and still leave a lot of people holding tickets that come up short, while the road underdog quietly covers by just refusing to go away. As our first pick for this matchup, the New Orleans Pelicans to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. Los Angeles has played a season that looks almost perfectly balanced on a spreadsheet, scoring just over 112 a night and allowing just a tick more, which is the statistical equivalent of walking a tightrope, while New Orleans has gone the other way entirely, pumping in around 115 a game and giving up roughly 120, which screams fireworks, far more than defensive clinic. The Pelicans lean into pace in a way that you can actually feel when you watch them, not just in the numbers. They push off misses, they are happy to take early threes, and Zion spends whole stretches treating the lane like it belongs to him, which creates a constant stream of high-value shots and free throw trips, even when the three ball is not falling. Their recent game log reads like a scoreboard operator's cardio workout, with totals landing in the 240s and beyond against Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Golden State, and Utah, and the common thread is that their defense cannot get enough stops to slow things down, so the only way they stay in games is by keeping the scoring race alive all night long. Clippers games feel more controlled most nights, but controlled does not automatically mean low scoring. Even in their last 5, you see them in that weird pocket where they can grind out a 90-something against Minnesota one night, then immediately find themselves in 120s against the Lakers or trading blows with Denver, and that kind of spread tells you their defense is good enough to scheme, but not suffocating enough to script every possession the way a true defensive juggernaut might. The matchup itself naturally nudges things upward. New Orleans has one of the worst defensive ratings in the league, sitting near the bottom tier by the efficiency metrics, which means even on a night where the Clippers are not especially hot from outside, they are likely to see clean looks, mismatches for Kawhi on the elbow, and driving lanes for secondary scorers like Benedict Mathurin attacking bent defenders. Once Los Angeles starts scoring in rhythm, New Orleans almost always responds the same way, by cranking up their own aggression on offense and living with whatever happens on the other end, which is exactly how games slip into that who gets to 121st feel. There is also a quiet wild card sitting in the background of the scoring conversation, and that is Darius Garland's status. If he is held out again, the Clippers still have plenty of scoring between Kawhi, Mathurin, John Collins, Derrick Jones Jr., and the spacing provided by Brook Lopez. And they have already shown they can put up big numbers with that group alone when the matchups are favorable. If the medical staff does clear Garland for that long-awaited debut, which current reporting frames as a real possibility but not a lock, then you are suddenly adding an all-star level pick-and-roll engine and pull-up shooter to a team already facing one of the most forgiving defenses in the league. And that is the type of if-it-happens wrinkle that tends to favor more scoring, not less. On the Pelicans side, even without Trey Murphy, they keep finding enough offense from different places that it is hard to picture them going completely quiet for long stretches. Zion can still hammer away inside. Jordan Poole has those streaky runs where he looks like he is back in a video game. Sadiq Bey has already hung huge numbers in recent wins. And Derek Queen quietly stitches possessions together as a passing big who keeps the ball moving and creates easy looks for role players. That kind of distributed scoring is annoying for defenses because you cannot just sell out on one guy without letting someone else walk into rhythm shots. Game script matters too, and this pairing breeds a particular type of script that tends to inflate the scoreboard. If the Clippers get ahead, New Orleans is going to keep running, keep attacking, and keep hunting threes, which means more possessions and more quick shots rather than long, clock-bleeding trips. If the Pelicans hang around or even sneak in front for stretches, Los Angeles has to lean harder on its half-court creation and crunch-time shot-making, which has already produced plenty of games this year, where both sides land in comfortable triple-digit territory before anyone even thinks about late-game fouling. Even the foul game itself tilts things toward a higher total kind of night. Both teams have high-usage creators who draw contact. Both rosters feature players who can get whistle-happy when the rotations break down, and we have already seen recent examples of each side piling up free throw attempts in the 20s and 30s, which quietly adds points without burning much clock. In a tight fourth quarter, that cocktail of star isolation, tired legs, and quick whistles tends to stretch the final combined score higher than it looked like earlier in the night. So you end up with a slowish home team that still scores efficiently, a fast road team that bleeds points but refuses to back off offensively, and a recent history of both clubs playing games that crack well past the comfortable scoring range more often than not. There is always a world where the Clippers' defense really hits and this turns into a grind, but given the way New Orleans has been living in track meets recently and the offensive talent on both rosters, the more believable story is the one where we look up in the fourth quarter and realize the scoreboard has been racing ahead of the usual expectation all night. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Sacramento Kings versus Los Angeles Lakers. Sunday night in Los Angeles always feels a little bigger when a struggling team walks into a building that expects a show, and that is exactly the stage for Sacramento against the Lakers here. The whole setup feels like a classic script, a confident home favorite in a comfortable routine, facing a visitor that has been stuck in a long, messy season where the lows are familiar and the highs feel like random flashes instead of a steady pattern. You can almost see it before tip, the crowd buzzing, the arena lights doing half the hype work, and a Lakers group that has been living as an offense-first machine getting the green light to push the pace, share the ball, and lean on talent that Sacramento simply cannot match from top to bottom right now. Here is the thing, the Lakers are very much that sports car with cheap break storyline, fast, loud, and built to score, but not exactly famous for locking anyone down for 48 minutes straight. That kind of profile actually helps in a spot like this, because when the game tilts their way, it tilts quickly, runs appear out of nowhere, and the scoreboard can turn into a pressure cooker for an underdog that has already spent most of the season playing from behind. Even when the defense springs leaks, the sheer weight of shot creation, inside and out, usually drags opponents into stretches where they are just hanging on and hoping the run ends before the gap gets embarrassing. Sacramento, on the other hand, has been living on the opposite side of that emotional spectrum, buried near the bottom of the conference, and often asking the same tired question, who is actually healthy and available tonight? Key names that should be stabilizers have been taken off the board for them, important pieces ruled out for the season, others stuck in street clothes with return dates circled later on the calendar, and that forces a constant shuffle of lineups and roles that rarely helps a team already struggling to defend. What you get from that kind of situation is a group that competes in pockets, has the occasional feel-good performance, but more often runs into stretches where the talent and depth gap shows up and the scoreboard snowballs against them, especially when the other side has stars that know how to step on the gas at home. Honestly, this is the kind of matchup that sportsbooks look at and say, if the favorite plays to its usual level for most of the night, the only real suspense is how big the final margin gets, not whether the game tightens late. The Lakers have the creation, the size, the late-game shot makers, and a home environment that rewards fast starts and big swings, while Sacramento brings a patchwork rotation that has been worn down by injuries and long losing stretches. If the game follows the pattern both teams have built across this season, the more likely story is a confident home team using its offensive rhythm and superior closing talent to stretch this thing out rather than nursing a one-possession sweat in the final minute. As our first pick for this matchup, the Los Angeles Lakers to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Neither of these teams has carved out an identity anchored in lockdown defense, and both have plenty of reasons to lean into what they actually do well, which is play with freedom, move the ball, and lean into open floor opportunities instead of grinding through half-court slugfests. It is the kind of pairing where you expect long rebounds, quick outlets, and a steady rhythm of early clock decisions that turn into runouts, threes, and free throws rather than slow, bruising possessions that keep the total stuck in a tight box. The Lakers bring an attack that feels comfortable in chaos, with primary creators who thrive when the game opens up and secondary pieces that feast when defenses are forced to overreact to stars getting downhill or posting up mismatches. That style rarely produces low-scoring rock fights, especially when the defense on the other side has been leaking for most of the year and does not consistently string together stops across multiple quarters. They might not play perfect, they almost never do, but the combination of pace, shot volume, and foul drawing usually pushes their games toward higher totals, especially when the opponent is willing, or forced, to run with them. Sacramento, for all its struggles, contributes to that kind of script rather than fighting it. The injuries and absences they are dealing with have nudged them toward lineups that rely more on guards and wings, players who naturally prefer space, tempo, and quick decisions over slow, mechanical sets. You see more mid-range craft, more kick-out threes, bigs who sprint the floor instead of posting up on every trip, and that means more possessions, more transition chances both ways, and more defensive breakdowns when tired legs start to show up in the second half. Even when they fall behind, there is a tendency to keep shooting, to keep pushing, because playing cautious, conservative basketball has not been their path this season anyway. Let me explain why that matters for the total when one team is wired to run and the other is too shaky defensively to truly slow things down. You often get a game where both sides end up trading scoring runs rather than stopping each other cold for long stretches. There is always a world where shots do not fall, where open threes rim out in a game that looked like a track meet on paper settles into something more muted, but everything in the current profiles of these two clubs points more toward a night where both offenses find long stretches of comfort. This is the kind of matchup that feels less like a chess game and more like a race to see who can stay hot longer, and those races rarely end with a modest number on the board. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.